Hi everyone, Raphael Harry here, and you're listening to White Label American, a podcast where we hear stories from an immigrant or two, sometimes more. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we begin, a few house announcements as always. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't to www.whitelabelamerican.com. Go there, leave your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. You can also leave voicemails. Or you leave a written note, leave good notes. And constructive criticism is also welcome. You can also donate. Either join our Patreon for as low as $3 or, you buy us a cup of coffee. All donations are welcome. Or if you want to be a Jeff Bezos, 100 million, hey, I'm bald, right? Hey, so black and bald. So we accept all donations, cash preferably, dollars, euros, the goods, every currency is welcome, but you know what I'm talking about. But with all that being said, you can go on the merch store also there or go to vetclothing.com and support the black-owned business and get our T-shirts, mugs, and all the goodies that we have up there. So before I jump to today's guest recommendation, check out the Tech John podcast, episode 18. A bro created the search engine. Now, there's a podcast from three black individuals who cover tech news and just give you a breakdown. And I love the way they do this coverage of tech, and they simplify it for people like myself who may skip over a whole lot of, maybe get carried away by the headlines and the big words, put it that way. Yeah, some people say, people might be surprised to find out that I'm scared of big words. But sometimes on the tech side of things, I might, I'm not interested in this. But the guys at the Tech John, and John is spelled JAWN. They do such an amazing job of just, giving you a fun, simple podcast breakdown. And it's also black owned. So, hey, check it out. And I think this episode, a bro created the search engine, will also show you some historical, some black history that, on this podcast, we say black history is global history, and you see how it's all related. And you have everybody uses a search engine today, started by a black person. I did not know that. So check it out. It's a fun listen, and you will enjoy it. So with that being said, let's meet today's guest. Now, you guys will notice that I recommended a tech-related podcast because today's guest has a tech background. He's a retired IT professional. He's a man who hosts two podcasts, the 757 Renaissance Man and LVAD Talks. He's active in the church community. He's the founder of the CC Collective, the Content Creators of Color Creative. He's a man who knows his music. He's a man who's worked in the music industry, huge IT background. This guy his background goes far and wide, and at the same time, he's local to his community. But when we dive in, you're going to see all this, and you're going to know why I brought him here, because this man has a wealth of knowledge that we all should be diving in and tapping into and benefiting from, because this brother creates a lot for the world, and the world is a better place for people like this. So welcome on the podcast, Shawn Connors. How are you today?
What's up, bro? How you doing, man?
Yay.
I appreciate that, man. But I gotta say, all honor to God, because if it weren't for him, it wouldn't be no me.
First of all, thank you for the sound bites in the background. That's another reason why I brought you here. That's actually
I know.
the reasons. I didn't want people to know that, but okay, I'll admit it. But yeah, so yes, we love having you here, and full disclosure, I'm not. I don't officially believe in God, but I believe in people who believe in Him and or her, depending on which way they go, and use their belief to do good for the world. So Yes, that's why I still love learning from people like you. Because I've had bad experiences, and that's why I don't bring those people here.
Right, right.
But most important thing is you. So first of all, before we dive into your origin story, because
Okay.
I'm a comics guy, so we got to go with origin story. Can you let the people know about your podcast and how you came up with those names?
Okay. Well, the first podcast is the 757 Renaissance Man. It's basically the story of people that I've grown up with and the people in my community that helped shaped who I am. And we have a very diverse circle. Surprisingly, though, within not a lot of reach has without um, going too far without my circle has we've reached thousands of people, with what we do. So the name was inspired. I'm a student of history, especially Black history. And one of my favorite times in America is the Harlem Renaissance
Mhm.
and just the exchange of ideas and creativity and the importance of history within the Black community that all happened in Harlem during that time is a great inspiration. And it reminds me of what's going on in the 757 Renaissance, in the 757 now. The 757, for people who are not familiar, is the Tidewater area of Hampton Roads. It's affectionately called the Seven Cities, and it's also the home of the world's biggest naval base,
That's right.
NOB. Yep,
I was
and
there.
that's what brings a lot of people here. And not to mention all of the schools we have in this area.
Hmm.
We are lucky to have a great variety of HBCUs. And then we have schools like Old Dominion, Regent University, William and Mary. So education is a real important part of the area. Then we got the entertainment community. I was blessed to be in the same generation and be able to interact with people like Missy and Timberland and Magoo. Actually, me and Magoo went to high school together.
Wow.
Um, so all that is and these stories and the stories of some of our religious leaders in the community, some of our entertainers, because a lot of times our history gets buried.
Mm,
And what better way to tell your history by have the people who actually lived it tell it?
that's right.
So the second podcast is LVAD Talk, and LVAD stands for Left Ventricle Assist Device. And basically, I have a heart pump, and the left side of my heart doesn't work. So if you know about your heart, the left side the blood goes out, the right side the blood goes in. So that part of the pumping action doesn't work. So I actually have a pump put in. I'm a cyborg. I'm the Black Iron Man. I have an arc reactor that powers me so I can go out throughout my day. So that podcast is to spread awareness to that. But not only that, because a lot of times that is um, a stepping stone or a way for you to live long enough so you can get a heart transplant. And so we also tell the stories of people who have gone through transplant, what it's like to go through and what it's like after. And we like to highlight the victories of the successes. And we also like to do our part in spreading awareness in organ donation, because especially in the Black and Brown communities, there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of people are afraid. But I mean, bottom line is, if for me to get a successful heart, it would help to come from another brown person.
Mhm.
So those were the reasons I started those two podcasts. And shout out to the content creators of color, C4 Challenge. That's a project. That's a passion project of mine to collaborate with content creators of color and do something meaningful and help spread the arts that we love so much.
And I am proud to be a partaker in the challenge, the C4 challenge, too.
Yes,
So,
sir. We're glad to have you.
so thank you again for these two wonderful podcasts. Um, when you were talking about Renaissance, the 757 Renaissance man, um, you know, you brought up something that dawned on me. You know, looking back to my education, and I always bring that a lot on the podcast. Uh, there was hardly any mention of the Harlem Renaissance, and today, like you and I will spend a lot of time on Clubhouse, and
Mhm.
you always find rooms that are like blacks versus African immigrants, and
Mhm.
back and forth, and I'm like, how many of these people realize that just something as small as not mentioning Harlem Renaissance
Mhm.
in our education back home is huge and creates a whole artificial world that when you come here, you can just easily, you already have your mind made up like people over here literally did nothing until the
Mhm.
60s or the
Right,
50s.
right. We didn't exist.
Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, everything was just a hand down from literally white people. Because
Mhm.
it's like, oh, the whole world, nobody could invent anything, nobody could come up with anything, nobody could create anything. Only one set of people were just doing all that. And then you start finding out, wait, there's so much history that you never
Mhm.
got all your life. And when you now find out and you're now trying to tell people, hey, look, this fighting that we have doesn't make sense because all we're doing is you don't know the other person. You don't really know because your history has been hidden from you. If you had known, it wouldn't make sense to get involved in some argument over, oh, these people are coming here. They're not our people. Or you are not my people. And why are you not my people? You're lazy. All the black people are lazy. How you say all black people are lazy? And then, but do you really know the black people? What do you know about black people? And then it's like,
Mhm.
you, you bring up Harlem Renaissance, and they're like, black people did. They were, okay, what? And then, just that's just one chapter. That's not the
Mhm.
whole chapter. It's just
And then
little one.
if you think about the concentration of power
Yeah,
or arts or mind, and when I say power, I only mean physical power, but I
yeah,
mean brain power
that's right.
that was in there. You had the likes of Langston Hughes, you
Hmm.
had Malcolm X, Ella Fitzgerald, all these people together at the same time that were great in their own elements, but was just coming together and collaborating.
That yeah, that's just fantastic when you say it like that because the word collaborating in there. And you know what? I just recalled something too. Um, when I just joined the Navy and then I began to take college classes, I took classes with Tidewater Community College and
Mhm.
um, some I
Shout
could,
out TCC.
yeah, TCC. Shout out TCC. I haven't given them a shout out for a long time, but yes, you guys started my path to getting a degree eventually. So shout out TCC, even though I didn't get a degree with you guys. And uh, the first class that I would fail because I eventually failed courses was Black African American history,
Mhm.
and it wasn't like it was a hard course to fill, but I was this guy who was piling up everything. Work, give me all the work, give me all the work, and then give me all the school, give me everything. So I couldn't keep up anymore. So I had to fail. I just had to drop out. And but one thing that I took out from that course was I still have the textbook. All my other courses, even most of my courses, I sold the books or I threw them away. But the textbook from that course, I still have it because
Mhm.
without realizing it, I think that began my true the crack that began that opened up my knowledge into African American history. I was like, wow, look, the history goes way back. It's like that. The scales fell off my eye. If I were to use a
Yeah.
reference from the Bible,
Yeah.
the scales fell out of my eye, and there was an assignment that was given. I can't recall the assignment was, and the professor said the Tidewater area was big in the civil rights movement.
Mhm.
So we have lots of references in the area. So yeah, reach out to churches, libraries, and I was like, huh? So I looked at the options that we had, and I think it was the Ebenezer Baptist Church. I think that was the name. I think it was
Ebenezer.
if I'm not mistaken. I can't
Mhm.
recall the full names, but I think Ebenezer was in the title, and I think it was in Norfolk.
Okay.
But I had to drive up there,
Mhm.
and Martin Luther King Jr. had given a speech there
Mhm.
one once or twice, but there was I called the church and they were like, oh yeah, yeah, come over, and they gave me um it was kind of like a printout, but it was technically a textbook because it was it was almost 100 pages. So, and I was like, wow, this is big history here. To me, my mind was blown that they just gave me this because coming from the Nigerian background, you don't get stuff like this free. It's like you have to pay money. So that's where my mind was at. And reading it, I was enjoying what I was reading so much that I forgot to do the assignment. That's how interesting it was. But I think reading that made me look at the area differently because I was like, oh man, I'm in this area. The only important thing that's happened in this area was the military. That's it. And I didn't realize how important that area was to America's history.
Yeah.
How the
This
rights
is the
that I
this is the
had.
birth. This is the birth of America happened right here.
Yeah,
Jamestown is right. It's
Jamestown.
right up.
That's true.
Jamestown is 10 minutes from my house, 10, 15 minutes from my house. And we
Yeah,
take it for granted that's in our backyard. Williamsburg is 20
that's
minutes from
true.
my house. You know, so
And
all of that happened here.
all that.
Also,
Yep.
not even 5 minutes from my house is where the first slaves or the first Africans, aka slaves, landed in America in 1619, right down the street from my house. So
Wow.
this is the birthplace of America.
That's right. It is. And holding that in my hand, and I don't. To me, then I was still shocked, but I don't think I even realized how big it was because today I don't even know where that pamphlet I was given ended up. But I think just reading that alone led to a big crack in my wiring, and will officially down the years will lead to the person who I am today, who's like, a lot of the BS I was given was just BS because it did not add up. But just seeing that, because it's like the whole picture I'd been given of MLK Jr. was that he only just hung around one place in the South until he got murdered, and then
and so
civil
that's one of the
rights
things
solved
that
everything.
we got to do with our younger generations,
Yeah.
right? Because especially now we have the unique challenge of there being so much information out there. How do you decipher? And a lot of times our personal history gets watered down. And I'm really alarmed with the movements in America now to try to change history and act like certain things just didn't exist. It's impossible to talk about American history and not talk about Black history because we built America. It's impossible.
It is.
It
is. And as someone who has grown up with watered history, who until he became an adult started realizing that, wow, I did not know my history. I still don't know the history of my tribal people because a lot of it was just watered down, and the sources that I'm getting it from now, they're still not 100%. So I can't 100% say, hey, this is who we are. That's how bad it is now. And it was just last year I discovered that Nigeria had pyramids that were destroyed by the British for some reason in 1935. I know every Nigerian I've talked to, school with me, nobody knows we had pyramids. But we did have pyramids in southeastern part of the country. So I've seen what it does when you have watered history given to a people. I've seen how we grew up with that. And I've seen how the fighting today, there are people who are like, no, that's not important. What's important is you just remove the person at the top. And I'm like, yeah, but the rot goes way deeper than that. And if you don't fix that crack, that's, already, you only like, I just paint over it. And that's what many people are going after. And that's what worries me when I see all these laws being passed. Oh, no, we need to water down the history and say, what can we present the other side's opinion? I'm like, history is not about opinion. History can't be about opinion. You can't say, oh, this side said we want to sell slaves, and then you say, well, it's about we put two sides. So is there two sides to the Holocaust? Is there two sides to genocide? So how does that work? Well, you're making me feel you're hurting my kids, so we can't. So
All right, and to kind of kick the dog a little bit,
Yeah,
that kind of bothers me because you're concerned about you hurting your kids, but what about my granddaddy that was hanging from the tree? What about him?
exactly, exactly, and that's why I tell people it's we can't we can't hide history. It doesn't do anyone any good. And when there are people who are like, well, it's hurting my kids. I didn't do anything wrong, so I wasn't the one who did it. So why should we dwell on the past? I'm like, you know what? If it'll make you feel better, let's look at Europe.
Mhm.
Eastern Europe, you have people who are like, we are mad right now because some of this stuff is happening there. In places like Poland, they're revising the history there. And now there's a movement like, no, that's not good. Because at first they kept quiet when it started. And then it got to the stage where the guy is like, the guy in charge is like, you know what? In this During the Holocaust, we weren't the bad guys. We did None of us participated. It was only just Nazis. But some of you were Nazis too. Oh, no, 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 no. It was just only the people from Germany that were the
Right,
Nazis.
right, right,
So
right.
yeah, we revised it, and it's like, but you're doing the same thing that they're doing now, but it was them. So I can do it if I say it was only those guys that did it, but I'm doing it now. And then now a new fight has kicked off, and those who were quiet are like, oh, we should have. Because when people have to say
Mhm.
we should have, it's never positive. It's never a positive
Yeah.
follow up that comes up after it. So I that's why I try to show people that this is not only happening to only black people, it's happening to other people.
Mhm.
And the more you keep quiet or you say I'm trying to stay neutral, it doesn't do you any good because it still comes back to bite you. So it's
Right.
best
And the
you
way I look
tackle it
at it,
now.
it's not about the history to punish you.
No,
It's about the history to uplift me. And there's, we kind of got to use that. It's not to make you see like, oh, poor, mean white guy, ancestors did this. It's more so to show my children, look what you came from, look what
yeah,
you overcome, and look what you're able or capable to do. It's not about that. And sometimes they take it like from the wrong reasons. And I got to counter that question with, what about my kids?
exactly. Because my daughter, she's 3 now, and certain things she may not be able to grasp. But I still soon I'll have to start letting her know that the one drop rule of America counts to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're black.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't let you be running around just thinking, you're not black. You are
Right.
black. So what about my kid? And when I bring that up, people are like, oh, I'm so sorry that your child has to go through that. I'm like, then stop voting for the people who are gonna make this whitewashing of history happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
scrap that off. And we all, that's why I appreciate Germany. They still have work to
Mm-hmm.
do. And no place is perfect, by the way. But I appreciate what Germany does, what they did after the Holocaust. Because my partner is from Germany. And on my first visit to Germany, I went to, they took me to the local museum in their hometown. And I went with my in laws. And they don't hide anything there. And it's not just limited to the Holocaust, which was why I appreciated their style of history. So the town is called Münster, and their history goes way back to when what's his name the Lutheran, the guy who founded
Martin Luther.
Martin Luther. Yes, I should have remembered
Mm-hmm.
that. I just talked about MLK. So when he started that movement, there were others who tried to create their own movement at the same time. And the Catholic Church was so powerful. Like, everybody knows Martin Luther, and sometimes people just simplify the story. Like, it just seemed like, oh, he came out and everybody just broke out from the Catholic Church. No, it was a big clampdown,
There was a reason, right?
and it was brutal in many
Mm-hmm.
places. These museums, they don't hide it. They don't hide how brutal it was.
Mm-hmm.
So in the city of Münster, there's the largest cathedral in the city center. It's no longer a functioning Catholic church. So it's like it belongs to the city now. At the top, you see 3 cages. Those 3 cages have skeletons in them. Those were the 3 people who tried to start their own movement to break out of the Catholic Church then. And the Catholic Church, they weren't successful. So the Catholic Church got them and boiled them alive. and hung them up. And was like, if you try this is what we're going to, we run this
Mhm.
town. Literally, we
Right,
run this
right.
town. You can't. That guy may have been successful in other parts of Germany, but not in this part. They didn't hide that part of their history.
Mhm.
They showed you that, yes, this is what happens when you have too much power and nobody can check you. They were explaining all that in the museum. It's both in English, it's in German, and in other languages. Then when you get to the Holocaust, they showed you how the Holocaust, it wasn't like some simple, oh, one bad guy came and then he just tried to kill some cat, tried to kill. No. They broke it down to how this guy came to power. And when you read that, you see everything. You see how Trump, it's literally like a photocopy. It's literally a photocopy. Because it makes sense why people were comparing Trump to Hitler. Because you just see how the excuses people were giving. They put all that, you see all the newspaper clips, you see all that, people like, oh, well, he's not, I don't think he will come after this group. I don't think he's going only after people who we consider inferior. He's going after people who, they are damaged. And you could see people
Which
from
is the same,
different
which is the
minority
same
groups.
rhetoric.
Yeah, same
Which is the
rhetoric.
same rhetoric
I was
from
like,
back in the day.
is this
Right.
Fox News that was existing then? I'm telling you, it was just, but this is a museum, and that's how history should be. You see everything. They're not adding a commentary, it's their words that they literally use to show you the whole, and then pow, it happens. It
So,
begins.
and that's why the podcasting platform is so important as a medium.
Yeah.
So we can come out and tell our own stories and sometimes counter what's going along in the modern day stories that's being told. Because, I grew up lucky enough with a mother who made sure that I knew my history and went out of her way to know that I knew more than just Martin Luther King, Booker T. Washington, to know about the other inventors and other intelligent people that we have in our community. And not just the ones that they glance over and give you on Black History Month, and that's one of the reasons, one of the motivations behind the 757 Renaissance Man podcast. So these people can have their own platform, their own stages, and we can tell the history as it happened and not through emotion.
Yeah. And it's very important. And we need more of that. And I'm glad that you're out there and you're leading the way. And that's one reason why I had to bring you here. So we've done a lot on, we've gone far into the podcasting, but we're still going to come back to it. But now let's jump back to your origin story. So introduce us to where you were born and what your childhood was like.
Ironically, I was born here in Hampton, Virginia. Like anybody else. Well, okay, two things. Two of the main reasons that people come to Hampton Roads brought my family here. Hampton University, both of my parents attended, and my father was in the Navy. He was enlisted at first, went through the boost program, and came out an officer after graduating from Hampton University. So that's where I'm from. I was born here, but shortly afterwards, he had to go to A school, and we lived for a small time in Waukegan, Illinois. But 757 has always been home, but I've done a lot of traveling because of my dad being an officer in the military.
So your dad went to A school in Illinois. Well, was he in the medical field?
Yes. He was a registered nurse.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He was one of the very first Black officers, and he was a registered nurse. He was a lieutenant commander when he retired.
Oh, nice. Because I remember after I graduated basic training, and I was about to leave for my A school, and there were some of my shipmates who were like, "Oh," but I was like, "Where are you going for A school?" Like, "I'm just going across the street." I'm like, "What?" I thought everybody was traveling around the country. Like, "Oh no, my A school just across the street." So I'm staying here in Illinois. Wait, what? What field are you? We're all medical. I was like, that sucks to be you. Yeah, because that was my first introduction to free meal. Because at the airport in Atlanta, they were like, "Oh, make sure you travel in your uniform." So, I was like, well, okay.
Right. Yeah, man. Yeah. And so because of that, that kind of is a part of what made me who I am.
Yeah.
It's very, very, I used to take it light as a kid because I didn't realize until I got older how significant my father was. And seeing the photos of him coming out of officer school, being the only dot, and they had that white their white naval uniforms on,
Yeah.
the all white, not the dress one, but the all white, and the crisscross at the bottom, the little kerchief
the service uniform.
Right. My dad being the darkest thing in that picture against
Wow.
all that white. You know what I mean? Being able to travel as a child of an officer is different moving throughout. Like I got to experience things that I know Black children to this day never going to see, like dining at the officers club or being able to stay in officers' quarters and taking the military hops and, you know, but because of that, I'm very aware of my Blackness and being the only Black person in the room. I'm very, very aware of that, you know?
So, what was that like? You know, before I go to the next question, I was going to ask, what was that like being? So, because it sounds like a lot of times you were like the only Black kid in the room.
Most of the time, well, a lot of times.
Yeah.
But so it was a duality in this because I grew up in a neighborhood called Camelot.
Oh.
And Camelot was created. Yep, it's in Chesapeake. It's right across from Cavalier Manor. Yeah.
See, I know someone who I don't know if they're still there, but yeah, she like a sister to me.
9 times out of 10, if you know somebody Black from the 757, you know somebody from Camelot or Cavalier Manor. It's one of the largest concentrations of Black communities in this area.
Yeah, she herself and her husband bought a house there. I just remembered. Yeah.
So I grew up in that area, and I had a wealth of Black men. I've had Black families. We were all middle class, from lower middle class to upper middle class, and some of us got, a little further than that. But I also had the military side that we had to deal with, and the traveling and had to go. One time we were in church when we used to go to church in Waukegan, and I met President Ford and his wife. Wow. And, just to be able to be in that, that room with a president, and funny thing was they came to our church. It was Shiloh Baptist Church in Waukegan, and they came to visit. And my father's always been a minister, and my mom has always sung in the choir. And and they have basements in that part of the country. And in the basement of the churches, where the choir normally gets ready. Back in those days, they used to put their robes on and all that kind of stuff. But in the back was like a private area, and that's where like the Secret Service and the president and his family were. And like they had it all blocked off, like you couldn't normally go where you normally go.
Yeah.
I think my mom's house might have been 3 or 4. And being 3 or 4 and rambunctious as 3 or 4-year-old little kids are, I knew it was Sunday. I'm at church. I know my mama downstairs after Sunday school. Pow! I shot down the stairs, ran through the legs of the Secret Service, and looking up at Betty Ford like, "Who is this white lady?" And that's how my parents got to meet the president.
Wow. As kids, I probably did some running around like that, but never led to any.
How I got through the Secret Service legs, I never know.
That right there, that was a short movie in itself.
I must have hit a juke on them.
Like, I Secret Service was pissed off until retirement. Like, man, that kid got me.
But then they was cool and they talked to me, and yeah.
Great. That was good, though. That was good. Well, although Secret Service tend to be much different from, regular police or others. So it's a whole different mindset if you're on Secret Service.
Yeah, but I got to the president.
You got to the president.
Tag, I win.
And you're a Black kid, too. Like, whoa.
Right.
Whoa. White kid is a little bit different. But, Black kid, hey. Might want to, Wow. So, now that gonna make my next question interesting. So, what would you consider your favorite childhood memory?
Oh man,
I know that's
wow. I've had so many adventures, and I don't know what would be my favorite childhood memory. I don't know. That's kind of hard because
all right. Let me
I've had quite the interesting life.
Two of your favorite childhood memories.
All right. I think one of my favorite accomplishments in life was becoming a member and marching in the Norfolk State University band.
Oh,
I always wanted to be in an HBCU band when I was a little kid. Like that's like one of my introductions to higher education,
hmm
and I was able to accomplish that. So, um, and in honor of that, I have to let you know what that means. That means I got to play music like this.
Oh, I know. What was that Nick Cannon movie? Uh,
Drumline. Yeah, I lived it. I
Drumline.
lived the
Yeah,
real drumline.
yeah.
Yes.
That was. I think that was my official introduction. I probably had seen stuff before that, but that's the one that stayed the most with me because I think yeah I bought the DVD the video CD. Yeah, back
So
then we couldn't afford DVD. It was video CD. You go to the guy on the streets. I was living in Port Harcourt when I had some extra change. I'd be like, hey man, what movie you got for me this week? Like, oh yeah, this one. Oh, what? Oh, this guy used to
yeah.
sing. He can. Is this a good movie? Ah, it's a good movie. You go put it on. Like, man, they're making music. What's this? What the bad guy? They gonna shoot somebody or not?
So I got to give a shout out to Norfolk State University, the mighty Spartan Legion. Behold the green and gold.
Yay, Norfolk State University. You see, that's another thing that if I'm go back to the whole history thing,
Mhm.
all that stuff. That's why I couldn't appreciate movies like that back then.
Mhm.
Because when I'm like I see the whole drumming and I'm like, what the hell are this, man? Give me a movie like fighting, shooting, because I don't understand the relevance. Like, why are these people making why they have a big band? What's all this? What's all
Mhm.
this music? Okay, it's black people playing music in the band. They play trumpet. Okay, they play, but it just didn't feel relevant to me. And yeah, when I was in elementary slash primary school back in Benin City, it was a military school, and we had some drums. Yeah, that was as bougie as our music equipment went. And if you showed up early to well, every morning we had assembly. We're in a Christian majority city, so it was we said prayers. We sang national. Nigerians are very patriotic. In the form of you must sing the national anthem, say the pledge, and then say prayers depending on what part of the country you're in. So you got to it became a thing where there were certain people who could play the drums. Now looking back, they were trash. That's just the best. They were trash. But depending on how early you got, and you got connected to that clique, they could allow you hold the drums. So one day they allowed me, I got to be able to hold the drums, and because it wasn't there weren't drums I could stand on them, so someone had to hold the drums while they were playing. So that was like as close to that music vibe that I got. And we never had music teachers, so you never got to appreciate stuff like that. So it was like, this type of stuff for white people. And then you now see a movie that has black people playing. I'm like, what's wrong with these black people? That was just the mindset that we had. I was
But
my
so you
crew,
gotta get the connection though, and the history and why it's
hmm
so important with the historically black colleges and why the bands are so important, because
Yeah,
that's a direct derivative of Western African music
ex-
coming over.
yeah.
That's how we carry, this from slavery. And we were finally able to assemble and have higher education. That is a direct product from our culture. And if you listen to the drums and the rhythms that come with these HBCU bands,
hmm
it's a direct translation from our African history.
I agree. And all these things, like I said, it's until I became an adult that I started learning all this and getting a better. Actually, when I say an adult, it wasn't even just until I became an adult. It was until I came over here and started having interactions that were outside my bubble. And that's when I started having a better appreciation for um, art like that. And I was like, oh man, all those days when we were like, so that's why we're talking like this. Like, man, what's wrong with these people? Well, we don't need this in our schools. Like,
But
because
you
there are
won't
people
be
who try to
surprised
bring those
there.
to Nigerian schools and we'll be like,
But you won't be surprised. There are a lot of African American kids in America that don't know HBCUs exist.
wow. Okay,
to
that's
right now, to this day. So, that's why I'm always on the kick, and I always want to say something
mhm.
and let them know, because it's a whole. If you ever have a chance to go to a HBCU and experience it, it's more than just a a textbook education.
Yeah.
It's an education of who you are and a reflection of who you are and can be in society without the limitations that's put on you by society.
Someone right after I got out of the Navy, and I was really depressed and in a dark, dark place later on. Uh, I met uh, uh, I think she was a wonderful woman. Probably due to my depression, I couldn't appreciate the woman then. And she had said to me, I was at Strayer University then, down in Dallas area
Mhm,
of Texas, and she was like, you're planning to move to New York, right? I said, yeah. And she was like, where are you going to for school? I was like, I'm looking at I've gained admission to a private university. I didn't even think that I could gain admission to an Ivy League, and I could have my everything was good, but I was so depressed I wasn't even thinking far or anything. And she was like, you should consider an HBCU. And I
mhm,
think without realizing it, the automatic programming that I had kicked in. And I said, oh,
mhm,
hell no, I don't want to be around. I've been around black people all my life, so I got to be around black people again. That's what I said.
mhm.
Yeah, I didn't, it's not like I thought about it. That was the first thing that just came out of my mouth. Now,
Right,
if
right.
you look back, if I look back at the way HBCUs were just introduced to me, it was from my childhood. It was mainly, you know, which wasn't wrong, but it was just like, oh, mostly white institutions didn't want black, mostly black kids to be there, and people of color, other people of color to be in their institutions. So black institutions had to be, universities had to be created, and that's how we got HBCUs. But we, like, and by we, I mean Nigeria. I'm talking about the Nigerian environment that I was familiar with. There was a lot of reference or reverence given to someone who graduated from an Ivy League school,
Mhm,
saying, "Oh, look, this person, Oxford educated, this one, uh, Harvard educated," and slowly but surely, that became something that even to this day, even among the Nigerian independence, the people considered the father of Nigerian independence. You have Ivy League educated people there. It
mhm,
you start that we don't realize how that something like that, little as that starts to change the programming, where
mhm,
a child says, "Oh, I gain admission to a HBCU." The parent like, "Huh? What is that?" My friend, can't you? Your mate is gaining admission to Harvard, to Penn State, to Oxford. Why you want to go to that? My friend, go to real school. What do you mean by
mhm.
real school? But we only just got we only got the tip of the iceberg when it came to HBCUs. So we never got that relevance. It was until I started interacting with people who graduated from HBCUs. And I was like, man, your energy is different. Why you all talk
Mhm,
like this? And I was like,
mhm.
wow. You know what? If I had to go back and do it again, I would most definitely go to HBCU. I would have. Yeah, that's one thing. I'm like, yeah, that woman was right when she told me. I was like, yeah, but there was that because I thought by then I was already done with the anti-blackness. But when something has been built into you, you don't even realize how much it's been built into you. So there's parts
Right,
of you
right.
that without even thinking about it, you just say certain things, you just do you act certain ways, and then later on, you're like, why did I do that? Wait, what? You have to, if you don't know,
Well,
you can't catch
check
it.
this out.
Yeah.
So with me, it was the opposite. And I talked to earlier about the duality I had to
Hmm.
live as an officer's kid, but my mom was an educator. My mom taught for 30 something years, right? Both of them graduated from Hampton University. Hampton University is considered the Black Ivy League school. If there's any HBCU, some people may argue,
Yeah.
but any HBCU was to be able to be considered an Ivy League school, it would be Hampton University, right? From the history, the status,
Hmm.
the quality of the education, and it's a private institution too. It's not a state. institution. So Hampton gets big props. So I grew up knowing that, and I basically, so my great aunt and my great uncle both were tenured professors at Hampton University. My uncle taught architecture. My aunt taught nursing. Ironically, my father went through the nursing program, but they actually lived in a house that was built in the 1800s by slaves on the campus. I grew up running around playing hide and go seek in this historic house.
Wow.
You know, so my programming was different to the point where until I got to high school, I didn't really pay PWIs any mind. For people who don't know, PWI is predominantly white institution.
Institution.
Surrounded by them, though. Like I mentioned before, we got William and Mary, we got Virginia Tech, we got ODU. Wasn't on my radar because to me, higher education looked like a HBCU. I was familiar with Hampton University, Norfolk State University, Grambling, Southern, North Carolina A&T. You know, those were the schools that was on my radar. I was Johnson C. Smith. I was not checking for Howard. I was not checking for Brown. I was not checking for Radford, which is right up the street from us. You know what I mean? That didn't exist to me. So to me, it was a natural thing being a creator and motivated by music to want to be in a band. And growing up on an HBCU campus, because we spent a lot of time there. He was my closest uncle. It was like the closest thing to going to see my grandparents. Spending so much time on that campus really changed how I saw myself and how I saw myself as a Black person, because we got to see world-class plays. Like I'm familiar with August Wilson plays, going back to my love of the Harlem Renaissance. I got to be able to see football games and the Black Greek life and be on campus when Jesse Jackson was running for president and watch him speak. You know, I got all these great opportunities because of HBCUs.
Wow. Yeah, man. I ain't gonna lie. I'm envious of you when it comes to that.
But it ain't too late, bro. It ain't too late.
Yeah. My GI Bill is exhausted. I blew it. Yeah. I'm doing. When they make education free again, I'm gonna be there. That's me.
Do yourself a favor and find out the closest HBCU to you. Find out when it's homecoming weekend and just go hang out and experience that. Just experience that.
Oh, okay. Go experience the homecoming weekend. Oh yeah,
go to the game.
Oh yeah,
see how that is.
Yeah,
they
but
usually have
watched
step shows and fashion shows. Yeah, it's so much. Just in the HBCU homecoming is so much culture to experience. You won't regret it.
Yeah, I always see posts about that online, and I'm like, damn, that's I was that. Even my PWI that I went to, I just went there to go read. I didn't even try to experience anything. I didn't even try to. Yeah, I made a few friends.
It's great you said that because it's more of the Black experience. It's the experience. That's an important word in your sentence, what you just said.
Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely have to go experience the homecoming weekend. Yep, adding that to my to-do list. Yeah, that's something.
Come down here, bro. You pick from Norfolk State. We got Hampton University, Elizabeth City. Come on.
Yeah, I'll probably go with you. Bring my daughter. My kid got to come experience.
If you come with me, you're gonna get VIP access to the band. So
okay. Now, yeah, that's all you should have said from the beginning. Yeah, well, I gotta consider other places. All right, so we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna jump into your career and other great things about you. Hi, everyone. We've made it 2 years, and who would have thought so? So let's go further. And make it 3, make it 4, make it 5, make it 6, who knows, 20. But we can't do this without your support. So join us on Patreon at patreon.com/whitelabelamericanpod or linktree.com/whitelabelamerican. Go there and you'll see our Patreon link, and you can join us for as low as $3. We have bonus content, we have bonus materials. There's so much juice over there that we don't release to the public, and yeah, you can contribute in making this podcast better. You can send questions, you can send your ideas, and also there's a lot of new things that are coming. The announcements are made on Patreon first, because we have to, take care of people who help make this podcast possible. So you can be the one to make this podcast what you want it to be. Come join us on Patreon and make it what you like to see. Join us, make it fantastic. Keep the 5 stars coming in, keep the love coming in. Thank you for the privilege of your company. So welcome back, and thank you all for staying with us. We appreciate y'all. So Shawn, it sounded like you were heading into music. It looked like the path, career-wise, of music had been decided by you. Like this was where something music related. You were going to be in the music sphere, if that's the right way to say it.
To be quite honest with you, though, it wasn't purposely done. Like I knew I loved the band, right, and I wanted to do whatever it took to be in a band. But to me, to say that that's what I want to do is to be a musician, I don't think that ever was the plan. I never really thought past being in a band. But the way my lifestyle and me growing up, I knew that I wanted to be in a band. So I always had to do something with music, because I knew that was my goal. I was blessed enough to have parents that knew early enough the different things in my path that need to be placed so I can make that goal. Okay. If I wanted to learn how to be in a band, I had to learn music. I should have been in a band when I was in elementary school. They gave me piano lessons. You know what I mean? So it was very purposely a path towards just that point in my life. And past that, I really didn't kind of know what I want to do. But I'm a multimedia creator. So I've always loved all of the arts, I don't have a favorite art. I love physical art, such as painting. I love portraits. I love photography. I love reading. I love music. I love the arts, anything encompassing of the arts I love. So no matter what, that was going to be some kind of way. I was going to always have that. Even if I worked in a factory, I probably would have been the singing, humming, guy with the records that had the mixtapes in the break room. You know what I mean? Something. It would have been something music related. And I just was blessed enough where the arts and the technology kind of crossed paths, and that's where I went.
All right. Yeah, I think music is. I mean, once you get into music, I think an appreciation for the arts always follows along with music. It's rare to see people who say, "Oh, I love music," even if they're not performers. It's hard to say, "Oh, I'm not into other form of art too," because the people use music to make other arts at the same time. So yeah. But you mentioned technology, and that's going to take me to the next question. So how did you officially get into technology, or what officially took you along the path of technology?
All right, so it's another thing that was not done on purpose, right? I told you I grew up in a neighborhood. I grew up in Hampton Roads, and I grew up in a neighborhood called Camelot, and that's in the city of Chesapeake. And Chesapeake at the time had and the state of Virginia, excuse me, had a very aggressive education department. And they were doing a lot of experimental things. So they had a program called GATE, Gifted and Talented Education. And through testing or whatever, a group of us kids were identified as gifted students. So they opened up a school. This is the precursor to the governor's magnet schools, right? This was like the experiment that led to things like that.
I think I read an article that once talked about that. Yeah.
So, and Virginia is also known to be, known for education. So I was fingered as one of these kids and a minority, we had a special school that was about 5-10 minutes away from my zoned elementary school, and they would take us out of school during like half the day and take us there. And at this school, we had it was like the beginning. It was STEM before there was STEM. So we had biology classes, we had mathematic classes, but it was also done in the name of science, and it was fun. Like we were making stuff explode and experiments, and like Mr. Wizard World type of stuff, right? But one of the classes was Introduction to the Personal Computer, and this is like in the late 80s. So computers like weren't even color back then. We had the big old floppy disk, and that gave me my introduction. And one of the things they taught us was they taught us basic coding, and that's what started the bug. So I think my first computer I used there was a Tandy 2000, and if you do your research, that was a powerhouse. Like I was ahead of the game, and I'm a little kid on this computer, right?
Wow.
So I had the type of father when I came home talking about this kind of stuff. He was like, no, this little kid is not going to know something that I don't know and outdo me. And he had the foresight to see how important technology was about to be, right?
Oh,
Did what he can do and bought me a computer back then. Now,
wow.
again, this is like 89. So an old raggedy computer is $2,000-$3,000. And that's a lot of money back then.
It is. That's huge,
I
big
was
money.
very blessed to just have that privilege to be able to experience that. And that just started the bug. And then the internet came, and I in between always doing, well, even before the internet, I was doing like digital graphic design before it was a thing. I don't know if you remember dot matrix printers. And they used to print out real noisy, and they had the little pieces of paper on the side, and they came in like the sheets came folded. You had to feed it through your printer, and it was like,
I think that was all I was used to in Nigeria for the most part of my life.
yeah. So we had the color when the color ones first came out, and it was like 3 colors, and the ribbons were moved.
Oh, you guys were bougie. That would have been that would have been like, wow, that's from the future. If you showed me that in Nigeria, I'd be like, man, look at that.
So
Colors.
I had this in high school, and what I always had a little bit of hustle in me too. So what I would do would be design these banners. It was an old crappy program called Printmaster, right? And I would put like, it would be somebody's birthday, and I'd be like, happy birthday to Mika. Like her boyfriend would get it. And I would charge them by the page, and I would charge them like $1 a page. So I print whatever you want printed, but the longer you print it, the more it costs.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of got me into graphic design, and that kind of led the bug there. And then AOL came out, and while AOL came out, I got curious. I was like, this is cool. And I started dibbling and dabbling in HTML and web development, and the rest is history.
All that was in high school.
This is high, yeah. Elementary school, high school, and during college, because during college, my major was early childhood education. Like it kind of afterwards, it was an afterthought. Like that's what I should be doing, because I really didn't know. Like I said, my main goal to going to college was to be in a band. Yeah. I really didn't give a damn about no degree. I wanted to be in a band. So, I picked a major that my mom was a teacher. I figured if I was going to do anything, I want to be a teacher. And that's what it was. I probably would have been a band teacher maybe if I would have kept on that path, but that's not the plan God had for me.
Wow. That was quite the segue from, being in the band. And I was like, wait, this technology thing going on here became your passion.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you never lost your interest in music.
Mm-hmm.
So both of them were your passion.
Music is always going to be a real important part of my life. My mother was a professional traveling gospel musician before I was even born, and traveled all over the country in many, many churches, and been on recording. She was in the gospel choir at Hampton University, traveled all over Europe. So music has been very important and very instrumental in my life from day one. Just just the music that gets played around my house and the variety of music now, from gospel to opera to jazz to funk. My mom's from Oklahoma, and Charlie Wilson's a cousin. So,
Oh wow.
that influence has always been there. So I've always had a multitude of music, and it's always been a real important part of my life. I can't live without music.
Neither can I. I think if you drop me on, when they ask that question of, oh, if they were to drop you on a deserted island, well, what's one thing you can't live without? I'm like, well, how about some music, man? You gotta play me like
And then
if
it gets harder than that. Like, what music?
what music? I
I
was like,
don't know what to
well, you can,
choose.
yeah, just give me all the music, man. You just
Right.
give me an app that has music, then we'll be fine. I can pick what music I want. I don't need to pick because if it's only one artist or one genre, I might get tired eventually. And be like, all right, get
Mhm.
me out of here. No, but maybe I'll just keep it to reggae or something slow and nice. But yeah, so you got you didn't go to college for tech, right? For none of the tech
Mm-mm.
stuff.
No,
You
I
so
didn't.
was it mostly self taught after high school?
Yeah, so by the time I got to college, I already knew how to program, but I didn't realize that I knew how to program. It was just the things I was doing
Oh,
as a hobby,
yeah.
And I I went to Norfolk State. I did what I wanted. I came to do, and after being in a band for a couple of years, I kind of laid out and eventually stopped going to Norfolk State. And then my dad was like, "Oh no, we're not having that. You about to get up and do something, or you about to get up out my house." And he meant that.
Yeah.
So I found a way to go to school for free and ended up going to school in Pennsylvania. And while in school in Pennsylvania, um, just by playing on the internet and doing certain things that I do, but it's definitely back in the days of dial-up, I caught the attention of a local businessman who needed a web designer, a web developer. I
Wow.
just happened to know how to web design, and I knew a little bit of graphic design, and he hired me. And from there, I started. I didn't even know Photoshop then. I was using, what was it? Corel Arts. Corel had a graphic design program, and I was using that. And a part of the business was a web design firm for Pennsylvania businesses and businesses in the region.
Okay.
And the other side of the house was a ISP, because that's back when ISPs were small and local, before the great AOLs and the mergers and the consolidations. Your ISP was a local company that you dialed in to get the internet. So because of that,
Oh
I
yeah.
got to learn not only the graphic part of it and the web design part of it.
Mhm.
I also got to see how the internet actually worked, because at that time your ISP was directly connected to the backbone of the internet. So I got to see how these protocols and the servers talk to each other. And because we were in a house unit, not only was I designing the web pages we had, I also had direct communications to the people who held the infrastructure. So then I gained that understanding.
Wow. Man, that is that's a movie. There's a movie in there, man. There's a movie in there, or at least some show that should be on Stars on Netflix. Where you just have me as one of the executive producers.
Come on,
uh,
hey,
you
you
know,
gotta put your paycheck, you gotta put your pocketbook behind it, bro. Let's do it.
one of the inspirations. Yeah, I get my 0.5, just 5%. Or yeah, I'll be there when you get the Emmys and just put me on stage. I got to say one of the thank yous, like just it'll be a brief thank you, but I'll be on stage. I'll wear a nice Wakanda outfit like I'm wearing right now.
Yeah, man. Wakanda forever.
Yeah. So wow, that's a great inspiration. So to those listening who uh, did not go to college, because before I ask the question, because you just reminded me of an interaction that I had at a networking event pre-pandemic. I attended an event at Google, where they were hosting veterans for one of their resume workshops, and a bunch of the veterans that Google had working there came to interact with us, and one of the guys who spoke did not have a college degree,
Mhm.
and he was also working in the IT. He was working in the IT field at Google New York head HQ, and he leveraged what I don't he didn't even do IT in the Navy, which is another great way to get all the certifications and all that. But it was after he got out of the Navy, he found a passion in um, learning the IT stuff, and he never went to college for that. He just found different ways of learning, and but he was self-taught and
Mhm.
was able to leverage that, and he's now been with Google for over 10 years. And that was
Yeah.
like the first time I was like, wow, someone can have a career
Mhm.
in certain fields without going to college. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying I'm against going to college, but I think it's good to hear from people who went through that part and how they did it. And I'm a believer in giving people options because I have people listening in places like Nigeria, places like Ghana, and South Africa, and other places, and not everybody is as privileged as I am to go to college, and uh, but there are also resources that they can leverage to go find their path, and I I like when people like yourself share your stories and you shared how you got into this career, and I'm like, I hope it inspires people like that to know that there's another way, and just because the most popular way or the most popular route is not open to them, it doesn't mean that every route is shut down. So there's opportunity. So what would you say to young, not only younger people, everybody who's trying to get into the IT world or the tech world, and hasn't officially, let's say, doesn't have a background, but is being self-taught like yourself? What would you say to them to, like they want to begin in that field, or they're looking to get into that field? What advice will you give to them?
Just start and look into. So any job in a technology job is a good starting point, right? So um let's just say that you want to go in a certain direction in the IT field. Just go ahead and take a small tech support job. That
Mm.
gets you in the door. Because I found that in my experience outweighed my schooling. My real world experience outweighed. I was blessed. I'm not saying everybody's going to have the same path I did, but I was blessed and lucky enough to be put into certain positions and learn certain things that had the experience before it was the knowledge was out there. And that experience I found in my career outweighed a lot of times people's degrees because they didn't have that hands-on experience. And all of your experiences in the IT community all can come together. Like, because I worked in like the beginning career in tech support, that gives you the basics to understand certain technologies, and most importantly, the people who don't understand technology and how they think, because that helps you make the technology easier and more accessible. So you got to take all those experiences and kind of put them together. Don't forget, especially in IT, certifications sometimes are better than degrees. And a lot of these certifications you can get by self-study. You don't have to necessarily take the college class to get it. Or you can take some of these classes that are like for a couple of weeks that concentrate just in, let's say your concentration is in networking. So you could take you a network course. Look up YouTube. You have way
Oh
more
yeah.
resources than what I had when I was starting out and was picking on the internet trying to figure out how to code in HTML. You have the technology to teach you the technology. Don't discount these certs, because if you get the proper certifications, you can write your own path that way. I'm not discounting a degree and I'm not discounting the college experience, but I think college and the military, I look at both of them the same way. I think if you're a young kid, you should try either one of them, if not both, because that will give you an opportunity to kind of figure out who you are.
Mm, that's great advice there. Great advice there. And that's
And
for
I
life.
know college ain't for everybody, the
Nope.
military ain't for everybody, but I think you should at least find out.
That's true. At least find out. Hey, I only did my 4 years of active duty, and part of me still feels I should have done 6 or 8 at least. But at least I found out, and it started me on the path to finding out who I wanted to be. So, and I tell people that yeah, just because you go in doesn't mean you're obligated to do 20 years.
Right.
But when you go in, you're gonna find out if you want to do 20 years or if you want to
Exactly.
do, just your 4 years and bounce. And time moves fast. It does move fast because people gonna be, oh, 4 years is a lot of time. I'm like, nah, trust me. When before you know it, it's like, well, 4 years up, and yeah. So, so let me see. I gotta jump to something that you mentioned at the beginning. The I'm going back to LVAD.
Mhm.
I got it right. I don't know why
Right.
I
You
was
got
stuck
it.
with that. Okay, LVAD. So with your heart, you know, condition, and creating awareness, because we only focused on the first part of the 757. Then, uh,
Mhm.
when did you begin to notice that there was something wrong, or like when did it occur to you that there was something going on with your heart?
I was born with a heart murmur, and I had my first open heart surgery when I was 3 years old in
Wow.
Chicago Children. We was in Waukegan in
Yeah.
Chicago Children's Hospital, and I'm 47 years old, and that it was a many moons ago, and that's before they really were doing open heart surgery on little kids, and
Wow.
that was the beginning of my journey with heart disease.
Wow. You are a miracle, man. You are you are one blessed individual. Cause man, that
Yeah, bro,
is
I agree all day long.
there you go. Play it. Play it. Just because I don't go to church, don't mean I don't mess with that. Play it.
Right, right.
My favorite podcast plays that all the time too. So I'm still black, man. You can't separate me from that. Wow. So, uh, with your condition, does that limit certain things like you can eat, or like does that create any limitations to the way you enjoy life?
um All right, so that's a two-part question. Before or after? Like before, yeah, it should have, and I should have been more aware of some of the choices I made in
Okay.
health and in life. But now, after going through this process, yes. So the main thing is, and it's another part of history, in our history, especially as African Americans, our diet has never really been um, um, we've been raised to have certain choices because of the way we were brought up,
Hmm.
um that are not necessarily healthy.
That's right. That's true.
And a lot of time I do, people don't like the way I say it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Slavery had a huge effect on our diet, and a lot of the problems that we have with our health now is directly contributed to the diet we were fed as slaves. And then throughout generations and generations and generations, you get heart disease, high blood pressure, more cases of sickle cell because of the bad diet that we were forced to eat. A lot of the foods we were forced to eat, you shouldn't eat,
True.
but that's what it was, the leftovers. And then it became part of the culture and things that are accepted. And throughout the generations, we just kept this bad diet. And that's one of the main struggles I'm having right now, because food is also an emotional thing. It's something we do when we celebrate,
Yeah.
and trying to rewire the way that you was programmed. That's one of the biggest challenges I have. But specifically with the LVAD, I have a pump And then the pump comes a little cord, and I have batteries. Right now, I got a little vest. You can't see my little batteries, but a lot of times when you see me, I have a little bag, and
Oh
in that
wow.
bag is the batteries that power my pump. But because of that, electricity and water don't mix, so I
Oh
can't swim. I can't get. I'm a gremlin. I can't get wet.
yeah.
So that's like my only limitation. I have, because of certain medicines, I have a few limitations. Like, gotta watch my vitamin K or whatever.
Hmm.
But for the most part, it's not too much that I can't do.
So, but you're still up for a heart transplant.
Yeah, and so transplant on its own is a huge. Um, it's a lot that you have to do to qualify, especially for a heart transplant. So there's times where you're listed or unlisted, and because my weight and the way I'm built,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm listed, sometimes I'm delisted. It all depends on what's going on with my weight.
Wow. Wow.
And it's a lot that goes in with that. Like, there's a whole hierarchy. Like, just because you're number 7 on the list
Yeah.
doesn't mean you want to stay number 7 on the list. Somebody can come on the list that's much sicker than you and bump you. Or you can get
Oh.
better, and because you're better and there's people sicker than you, they can get priority. Or you can get worse and you can get bumped up for somebody else. So it's dynamic, and there's a lot of variables with that.
Wow.
But thank God there's a thing called an LVAD. I've had my LVAD for 6 years. If I didn't have my LVAD, I would have been gone 6 years ago.
Wow. That's a lot that I didn't know, and yeah, that's another reason why I'm glad that you're here because that just opened my eyes to a whole lot of information. I've gotten more awareness, and I will also expand my research on that too because it's something that yeah, we should all be aware of that too. It shouldn't be something that we wait until um, we find ourselves at the hospital. Then we're like, oh, no, now we're now researching. Yeah, it's something. The awareness should be out there. And you about the diet, you're 100 on that, and it's not only limited to our African American brethren here. Even those of us back home, um, well, even yeah, Nigerians don't like saying that. Like I remember one day I went for my checkup at the VA, and it was a Nigerian-born doctor who checked on me, and she was asking me like, "Do you make this stew, a goosey stew, which is from watermelon seeds?"
Mhm.
And it's one of my favorites. And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, how do you make it? How do you make it in America? Do you have palm oil?" And I was like, nah, I don't use palm oil. I stopped using palm oil a long time ago. And she's like, what? Yeah, you can't call that a goosey if you don't use palm oil. I know it's not healthy, it's not good for us. And I know I'm your doctor right now, but I shouldn't be saying, I'm like, there you go. There you go. But
Mhm.
hey, since I found out, and yeah, but I think there was also, when I joined the Navy, it was one of the things that always surprised me. One of the first questions I always got every time I went for a checkup was, have you had diabetes? Anybody in your family
Mhm.
got diabetes? And I was like, why? Well, no. And it was like, well, why should somebody have it in my family? I wasn't aware of Black history, the medical history, and all that. And it began to dawn on me, like, sometimes I go for a checkup and people like, wow, you for a Black man of your age, you're very
Mhm.
healthy. You keep it up. Make sure whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I was like, what? I just only started exercising like maybe 6 months ago. Huh? I think I let that get into my head because I really got big after the Navy. But the more I started learning about the history, our health, I started getting why almost every time I went for checkups, even my teeth,
Mhm.
the dentist always like, wow, what have you been doing? Like, well,
Mhm.
this is good. And what?
Because you didn't have those extra processed sugars and all that stuff, that Kool-Aid and things that we was brought up
Yeah,
on.
but it was
Yeah.
one movie I watched that changed all that for me. Going
Mhm.
Bananas as a kid,
Okay.
where they
Uh-huh.
had the white guy needed a dent. He had toothache, and it was, yeah, it was probably in today's world, people gonna be like, "What the hell is this?" Like, because it was some Southern African village. Those white people ended up at, and it was comedy for us
Mhm.
because we used to laugh at that movie all the time. And the guy needed his tooth fixed. They said, "Oh, we got a dentist." The guy who's the dentist shows up dressed in witch doctor garb, sits on a bicycle, riding the pedaling the bicycle, and it's like a drill pops out from the bicycle into the guy's mouth, and I'm like, is that a dentist? What? Hell no! What do I have to do to not see a dentist? And my elder siblings took advantage of that. Were like, oh, don't drink Coke, don't drink soda,
Mhm.
don't eat sweets all the time. So I was like, oh, so if I don't drink Fanta, maybe I should drink the bitter lemon. That will
Right,
stop it.
right.
So I started drinking bitter
So,
stuff. That's how
so then think
my teeth
about, so
changed.
as Americans and growing up African American, not only did we have the curse of the soul food, which not saying
Yep.
all soul food is bad, but a
Yep.
lot of it is.
Mhm.
We also had the curse of the American Eastern diet,
Oh yeah.
the McDonald's and
Ooh.
fast food and all the stuff that's not good. And we were fed this misconception
Mhm.
that it was healthy and good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all that. I think that's the only part of the anti-blackness that I got before that stayed that worked in my favor was that when I arrived in America, I was like, I ain't doing fast food. I'm not doing that fast food. And yeah, now I do eat fast food. My wife tends to buy fast food once in a while. But like when the spicy, who had the Popeyes? Was it Popeye that had that spicy chicken that got people going crazy?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We did it. Yeah, I was like, okay, I gotta try this stuff. What's making people go crazy on the internet? Let me try it. Yeah, I ordered it. Yeah, but I don't eat it all the time. My wife was like, she was surprised. Like, why don't you? It's difficult for you to say I'm going to order fast food. She got to take the phone and order it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to do it. But it was that part of if I hadn't been programmed that way, like, oh, I'm not gonna mess with this stuff. But I think in a weird way, it worked for me in that now most of the time, yeah, I still have health issues. Not like I don't have health issues. The other day I was at the ER because I wasn't taking my medication. But uh, for the most part, the doctor is always like, wow. When they say wow, I get it now why they see someone of my age
Mhm.
and they're like, yeah, you're a black man, you're in this category, and you don't have the problems that we normally associate with black men of your
Mhm.
age. So keep taking care of yourself. And that's what inspired me to start saying, I'll be taking care of myself. Because, yeah, I shouldn't be waiting until white doctors or white people or white whatever, or even black doctors tell me, keep taking care of. I should be telling myself, keep taking care of yourself. It should be
Mhm.
imperative to me because I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me. So it's also part of the awareness that's out there. So yeah, I changed my diet. I still make Nigerian food. That's the food I cook. Nigerian Ghanaian food, but I don't use palm oil anymore. And
Mhm.
because I don't know how I survived. All the food we cooked in Nigeria was with palm oil that I
Mhm.
used to eat a lot. Well, when I didn't have money, that's what I could afford. And that oil, when you just leave the bottle and you see the way it gets thick, before you could cook, you got to get the fire, depending on if you had a kerosene stove or you were cooking with firewood. You get your fire
Mhm.
going, then you got to have the bottle over the fire. Get your hands, your fingers cooking too. Then the oil melts before you can
Mhm.
cook whatever you want to cook. That should have been a red flag, right? They're like, what is this doing inside our bodies?
Right.
And
Right.
that is us back in Nigeria. We'll be looking at people across the ocean saying, oh, yeah, their food is the only food that got problems. I'm like, our food got problems too. We don't consider that. And then we also have lots of people we have lots of health issues, which we don't officially address. We like saying like the most common killer in Nigeria is, um, how do we say it again? Brief illness. If you look at
Mhm.
Nigerian obituaries,
Mhm.
he or she died, he died of brief illness. She died of brief illness. When you
Mhm.
ask the family, oh, he was brief, he died. He just fell sick and died. What killed the person? We don't know.
Mhm.
So that's how there's no awareness. That's why Fela's death will still be a major thing because his family didn't do that brief illness thing. The family came out and said he had AIDS.
Mhm.
So they used that to create an awareness.
Mhm.
You guys, be careful. You guys need to, this is real. They
Mhm.
stop that brief illness thing for that moment. And people were like, oh, so
Mhm.
this thing is not only white people that it kills. Oh, this is not only people in America it kills. Oh,
Right.
this,
Right. Mhm.
the awareness came out from that.
Mhm.
So other people need to, and that's how a lot of us took stuff like that seriously. So that's why awareness is big and awareness is important. And I appreciate you sharing on that too. So there's a lot I would love to ask you. I'm definitely have to bring you over again because there's way too much for me to ask you. But I have to start bringing it down. So let me see. I'm asking like three more questions. Three
Okay.
more questions. So where should I go? Where should I go? I mean, let's. Okay, I think I know where I'm going. So you've traveled around the country a lot, and you've done international travel too.
hmm
So let me see. I go international. Well, I'll just throw it all together. In all your travels, name one experience that was like, whoa, what's going on here? That gave you a big culture shock.
My father was stationed in Puerto Rico, and it was my first experience in the Caribbean. And growing up in the States, my image of what Puerto Ricans were different. We have a thing called New Yorkers. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the Puerto Ricans that I'm familiar with are ones like from New York, that came
Yep.
from the island. There's a large concentration that they come from the island, they go to New York, and then they go other places, right?
Yep.
But actually experiencing life on the island with the indigenous people was incredible. And that was at a time in my life, I was almost younger teenager, I would say. So I was impressionable, but to be able to see this different culture and community and the different languages, and then seeing the different subsets of the like it's Puerto Ricans that, we're used to the lighter Puerto Ricans that we see in New York, but
Yes.
they're Puerto Ricans is just as dark as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And like Dominicans and the Afro-Cuban part, and just seeing how that works, and just little things in the culture, like siesta is a real thing.
Oh
Like to
yeah.
me, that was a comic book thing, but siesta is like really ingrained in the community. It's a real thing. Don't look for nothing to happen on 1 o'clock on that island. The lunchtime is from 12 to 1, and then from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock is siesta. That's what it is. You can't change it. I don't care what you got to do, what kind of rush you in. It's siesta. You need to lay your butt down and take a nap, just like everybody else. So
Yeah.
just being able to see that, and experience that. I was on a naval base. I lived in the officers' quarters. I was surrounded by other people in the Navy. I got to learn to snorkel and scuba dive. There's nothing else to do. So yeah, it was a great experience. And not only in that experience did I get to see just that, that was a time when I kind of got to really understand who my dad was. And at the time, I did not know that his group of friends were so influential as they were. But I was surrounded by Black officers in the United States Navy. Not
Mm.
only men, because he was a registered nurse, but women. And
Wow.
I was surrounded by multiple. I know 2 or 3 Black women captains in the Navy. Just to say you've seen one is unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
I know multiple ones. I'm not so sure if you're familiar with that movie, Men of Honor,
Yep.
and Carl Bashir.
Yes.
I grew up not too far from Carl Bashir, and one of these ladies that I'm referencing is the nurse that was his wife in the movie.
Oh
I know
wow.
this lady. I know Carl Bashir's grandkids. And,
Wow.
to grow up in that environment, now realizing who these people were and how they were, how important they were, it was awesome. So yeah, that was one of my favorite experiences in life.
So before I'll come back to Puerto Rico. But after seeing Men of Honor,
Mhm.
did that movie
Yo, so
fit?
to me, it's just Mr. Bashir.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when the movie came out, I'm like, look at Cobra Ken Jr.
Wow.
And then they explained to me who his wife was, and I was like,
Wow.
but so I'm living it, you know. So
Yeah.
and I took it for granted. It was just my dad's friends. We would just go over their house on the weekends and listen to records and watch Laserdisc and stuff like that. Because on the island, yes, they spoke English, but it was primarily Spanish speaking community. So sometimes you just wanted to speak English, you know. So and then again we had a group of a black community out of the ordinary. It was just awesome. I took it for granted then, but I don't take it for granted now.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's I think it was episode 60 or 61 with the Bantu boys. One of um, one of the duo, Julian, he was born in Belgium, but to Congolese parents, the Democratic Republic of Congolese parents, and his dad's restaurant always had it was quite popular amongst the Congolese community in their part of Belgium, and one of the biggest African musicians of all time, Papa Wemba. He met him there. He didn't know who the guy was, and that's what just popped up in my mind. Of sometimes when when we are young guy, something it doesn't really registered at that moment when some moments like that happen, and then with time it starts to register. Wow, this was why this was a big deal. This is who this person was because this and wow, so that's just a great moment. And yeah, New York, and I had a previous guest, Matilda, who um, I talked about. She introduced me to New Yorican too because she's big on New Yorican art. She's from Puerto Rico, so yes, and well, so yeah, that's a beautiful period and a beautiful experience. So I gotta ask now. So before I come to you for my homecoming weekend, which we can't invite any other people. Other people, you guys gotta stay away. Go find some other the other HBCUs. Go show them love. Can't share
Well,
this.
bro, you're gonna be sharing that HBCU with me and about 50,000 other people.
See, that's what I put on to join me. So let's say I'm a tourist because even though I lived in the 757, I don't really consider it living because I was a totally different person then. I didn't appreciate it. So now it's like other than the Oceana and NOB, Dam Neck and Little Creek. Yeah, yeah, think I'm forgetting one more base. I was mostly on the bases, and I've visited a few towns in between. But let's say I'm coming now to Portsmouth, and uh, or a tourist or any other person coming, but I'm just putting myself as someone who's listening and saying, I want to come to where Shawn is at, and this is going to be their first time visit to town. Where would you take them to eat, and what would you recommend that they try?
Ooh, does it necessarily have to be in Portsmouth though?
Okay. Well, okay, let's expand. Did you want? Okay, let's do 757. I don't want to go to
Okay.
757 in general, but all right, let's do 757. It's your territory, so you're in charge of this.
Now, don't get nothing wrong. There's plenty places in Portsmouth, and one of the places I would take you is a little small hole in the wall called Mama Chan's, and they are the original place. We have a dish that's Portsmouth original called yak, and it's
Yeah.
noodles, and it's
Oh.
just the way it's prepared, and it's very unique to Portsmouth. So we will have to stop through there in Portsmouth. But one of my favorite restaurants right now is a restaurant in Hampton called Mango Mango, and it is a Afro Caribbean Creole fusion, soul food fusion restaurant. A lot of the cuisine there is based off food that you would get like in the Creole, Louisiana, like gumbos and shrimp and grits, but it's with a French fusion to it.
Okay.
And it's owned by three Black women, and it was featured on Shark Tank. So if you look up
Oh,
Mango,
mango.
and they've grown into have a couple of businesses and restaurants, and they have a cafeteria now. But that's one of my favorites.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we got MP Island Cafe. We got one of our first. It's owned by Mike Palmer, and he also owns the Berkeley Market. Was one of the first major black shopping centers in the area. Not only is it a shopping center, but there's also a restaurant inside there. If you want to get that good soul food or
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean food, we would go there. Um, Man, there's a whole strip in Hampton here on West Queens Way that will have anything you'll want. It's a place called Marker 20. There's a place called um, Brown Cow has the best hamburgers I've ever had in my life.
Oh,
It's food is not a problem. Shout out
I
to my
know.
man. Uh, my man's restaurant Got Fish. He started out from a food truck maybe about 4 years ago and has one of the biggest newest black seafood restaurants in the Hampton Roads area with 2 locations now. And I'm really proud of him and seeing his growth, and not only the growth for his restaurant, but what he does into the community. So yeah,
And
it's
it's called
what you want.
Godfish.
It's called Got Fish.
Godfish. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of places. Just curious, you got any place in Virginia Beach?
I would actually, if you were in Virginia Beach, I would look on Instagram and I would Google two chefs, Chef Boy Boy, and Boy Boy is BOI, or Chef Dro, and that's DRO. And they're both in the Hampton Roads area. If anybody ever wants to contact them and they can't get them, hit my Instagram and I'll send them to you. They are both private chefs. I
Oh,
would check them out and see what they're doing, or if they're doing any pop-ups the time that you're here, because
okay.
they're definitely worth checking out.
Nice. And I'll make sure I let my Navy people down there. I still got a few Navy people down there. I'll let them know. Like, hey, make sure you check out both chefs. Alrighty.
Yeah.
So now this is usually a question that I don't have any difficulty asking, but with you, knowing you, this is gonna be one of the toughest times I struggle to ask this question, and I'm now thinking, how the hell do I ask it?
Come on, let's have it.
Mm, 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 mm. Mm, 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 mm. There needs to be a soundbite for me struggling with this one. But yeah, so let's see. Because I had to reconstruct the question, reconstruct it again. I was like, that ain't working. That ain't working. So I was trying to make it controversial for you, and at the same time, try to take you out of your comfort zone. And I was like, I don't know if I can land, but let's see. I try. I try.
All
So
right.
we're going to music, and yes,
Mhm.
we've touched music a lot, but this time we're going to a different aspect of music. So everybody who's been on this podcast automatically qualifies as a dancer. So we know you can dance. If you say you can't dance, we stop recording now and say, well, I kick you off. You know. So we need you to dance for at least three. No, not three. We need you to dance for at least 1 hour, and we need you to pick 3 or 4 artists that will keep you dancing for at least an hour. But now, knowing you that you're so big into music, we need to we don't want the most popular names, so
Mhm.
we're gonna cut that out. We don't want the most what would I say? How what else I got to cut out? Well, I need to cut out something, but I don't know. Okay, we're just gonna say none of the most popular names.
Mhm.
None of the most you can't, and that includes old school, new school, middle school. You can't use names that I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay, but you gotta give us the good stuff that'll keep you dancing for at least an hour.
All
So
right.
give us at least 3 or 4 artists that'll keep you dancing. Or you can just throw in a song.
I would say Fela Kuti.
Oh,
Um,
this man trying to be on my good side. He's trying to be on my good side. Okay.
Parliament Funkadelic.
Oh, yep, the second
Um,
appearance.
let's see. I'm trying to think of some non-conformative. Count Basie and his orchestra.
Wait, what you call that?
Count Basie.
Camp
Big
Basie.
big band. Harlem Renaissance.
Hmm.
Band leader.
I wouldn't be
Count
surprised.
Basie is one of my favorite big bands of that time.
How you spell Basie?
Bassie.
SSIE. Hmm.
That
I,
1 o'clock jump is like one of the most popular songs.
I wouldn't be surprised if I probably have heard that. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, I survived that question. All right. All right, because I was like, this man knows so
Oh,
much music.
shout out
Yeah.
Kirk Franklin. Kirk
Ah,
Franklin. I'm
aha.
also a church boy too, so we
Yeah.
gotta have some of that in there.
Well, I ain't gonna lie. That guy, when he came out, you know, okay, I'm that guy who this music bumps. So yeah, you can dance, you go grooving, and then it's like maybe the music has been out for months, and then one day you're like, oh, you're dancing. And, wait a minute, why they play this music on Sunday? I hear this song on Friday nights, in the middle of all the club type of music, and then they play it on Saturday. What the hell's up? And then Sunday, like Nigeria on Sunday, most cities it's like you get church music from 6 a.m. up to 2 p.m. and then like depending on what city, if you're like in my southern region, then it becomes calypso. Well, you were getting Kick Franklin, I'm like, huh. And then wait, this guy, it's actually gospel. Whoa.
Mhm. Mhm.
I go to church, and they play this song in church, like people dancing, like, oh man, this guy's song everywhere. This song
Mhm.
transcends borders. It was in the club, it was in the church, it was on the streets, it was on the buses. I was like, man, that's why when he came, he came to Nigeria. Yeah, he came to Port Harcourt. When I was in Port Harcourt, that was huge because there was mad traffic. We don't really have good organization with all the traffic right now. It's even much worse. But then, yeah, it was the traffic that day. If you were coming to that church, you better you best be there like 4 or 5 hours before the service to get a seat.
Right.
Otherwise, you'll be outside. But that was one individual that showed me that you don't have to, just because you sing gospel music, it doesn't mean you can't make music that everybody can dance to.
Correct.
And that was like, yeah, I got to give it to you, brother. I got to give it to you. Like, yeah, respect. Yeah, mad respect. Yeah, I respect that dude. Yeah. So great choices there. Great choices. So second to the last question.
Mhm.
You also take your creativity and give back to the community by working with churches in your. I guess you follow. I can call that a continuation of your family legacy because
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
aware
Quite
of
definitely. Mhm.
your parents being so involved in the church. So now that I'm now aware of that. I'm like, oh, okay, makes sense that you also give back to the church by by helping churches with their podcast. So, what's the difference between being the creative director for podcasts by churches and podcasts from individuals or the private sector?
Yeah. So I gotta go back with that. Like my father he's one of the ones that that's the thing we shared was the tech bug, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being that he was a minister, I spent a lot of time in church. Just by being a minister's kid, you got to go to church. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And the very first video camera I ever held was pointing it at somebody preaching. And that kind of set the scene for my whole video experience. So not only do we do like church podcasts, but we do live broadcasts for churches, especially in the days now of Corona.
Mm-hmm.
And I am on the media ministry of my home church, and one of my responsibilities is to help facilitate the live broadcast. So that takes all of my experiences and kind of throws it together in that arena too. I think a lot of churches were caught off guard, and some of them they just didn't have the digital foundation that they needed when especially when the pandemic first started.
That's true.
So yeah, a lot of the work is done with live streaming and getting the word out. We have a large elderly population in my own personal church, so it was very important to be able to make that experience accessible to them. And then you tackle different conversations like now, what does the church look like during the pandemic? Not only the church, but you're dealing again, when you're dealing with the Black church, you also have certain sets of unique challenges like the digital divide.
Yeah.
Like a lot of our seniors aren't, technically advanced as some of the other Anglo seniors out there. We have a hard time making sure our kids got enough technologies. We're not even looking at the seniors.
That's
So we
true.
did a whole big thing with my church where they gave out our seniors tablets so they would be able to access church and not be left out during the pandemic. So yeah, I'm very proud of being able to play that role. And to me, that's my evangelism. It's more of a digital evangelism. And I feel, that's how God chooses to use me and the talents he gave me. And I'm cool with that because I ain't never been one to want to be on pulpit.
Hey, you recognize your gifts and you're using it in a way that is, as you said, digital evangelism. And you're right. I got privilege to have just my tablet here, and sometimes I don't realize how big a deal it is for someone to have the same
Right. You got to
tablet.
think about the 80-year-old mother of the church that all she want to do is just see her little church service.
That's right.
That tablet is intimidating to her. Well, she don't know where to go, where to start. How do you get there?
True. True. So yeah, thank you for doing that. That's huge because just from giving them access to that for the church, it also expands into education and creating awareness and so many other things. So it's not just limited to just.
And I can't take credit for that. I also got to give credit, to the foresight of the leadership of my church, of New Hope Baptist Church in Chesapeake, Virginia. I'm just lucky enough to be able to play a role.
Yeah. Shout out to them too, because they support you, and they recognize that there's something there. Because I'm aware of others who were like, "Nah, we're gonna fight this technology, and we don't need to do it this way." And no, accessibility.
Now,
like you said.
There was a few we had to drag kicking and screaming into.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. But like you said, the main goal is accessibility, and when you come from that angle, that's where it should be. All right. So, man, I could talk to you all day. I've gone way over time, but it's all good. So, final question: what would you like to leave the audience with? It's your freestyle moment, so hit us with something.
I just want everybody to be patient with each other. Take time to learn from each other, experience each other, and we're all different. We recently had political jargon, make America great again. Well, let's make America great, but let's keep it great, and let's make it great for everybody, not just a specific set of people. And shameless plug, check out my podcast, 757renaissanceman.com, LVADtalk.com. That's LVAD talk.com. And check out the C4 Challenge. That's C4challenge.com. We got a lot of good content for you guys. And everybody make something great today.
All right. That was going to be my final thing for you to plug yourself. So, hey, you already did that. But still, where can people find Shawn Connors?
Most directly on social media, you catch me at Shawn Connors, all one word, on Instagram. And that's probably the best way to get me. I don't really tweet too much. And then the websites, LVADtalk.com, 757 Renaissance Man Talk. I'm sorry, 757renaissanceman.com. Either way, just shoot me a message and I will respond.
All right. And I'll have all that in the show notes. And they'll be tagged on social media and you can see it all. And yeah, hit up Shawn. He's a great guy. You've heard him, fantastic individual. And there's so much to learn from this brother. And I'm so honored to have had you here. Thank you for sharing your time with us. As I say in my language,
the honor is all mine, man. I was very excited when you asked me. I couldn't wait to get here. I'm very proud of the work that you're doing, and I'm quickly become a fan of your show.
I Appreciate that, brother. Appreciate that. And for everyone listening, don't forget to go give us the 5 stars, write an awesome review on whatever platform you're listening on. And you can also do that on the website too. We appreciate that. So thank you for the privilege of your company. Come back next week. And don't forget to check out the C4 Challenge. Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoy the show, we'll appreciate if you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. If you have any questions, comments, or have someone who will be a good guest on the show, or you want to be on the show, send us a message at whitelabelamerican@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at White Label American. Thank you for your support.